Good afternoon and welcome to Wholesome Roots. Today I'm going to tell you how to care for day-old quail chicks in 5 simple steps. So the first step that you're going to be concerned with is your housing.
For our brooder, I find a plastic storage tote to be the easiest to set up and keep clean and sanitized for the first week or two, depending on how many chicks you're caring for. I always sanitize it well with vinegar and be sure that it is all the way dry before I add any bedding. A cardboard box works well, but it can get gross fast with the moisture from spilled water and poop. So if you use cardboard, be sure to have extra boxes on hand to replace frequently because moisture is not okay.
The next step that you're going to be concerned about is bedding. We use pine shavings. They're easy to come by, they're clean, they're affordable, they're just easy to use, and the main thing that you want to make sure is that you do not get cedar bedding. Cedar can be very hazardous to their respiratory systems. But before I add that layer of cedar chips, I put down a layer of newspaper or paper towels. This gives something for the pine shavings to rest on and also to help absorb any moisture that might spill or any poop that may be falling in between the pine shavings. It makes it much easier to clean out. You could just scoop up the newspaper, roll it into a ball, and put it into a bag and throw it away. You can also use rough textured newspaper. Be sure it's not the glossy newspaper like the print ads because they will slip on it. So it has to be something that's not slippery underneath them. If they're slipping around on the bottom of a plastic tote, they will end up with splayed legs. The next step that you're going to be concerned with is heat. Now, it is often recommended that you leave chicks in an incubator until they're all the way dry. For me, what I've seen is they never get completely dry in the incubator because the humidity has been raised at the end during the hatching. So I wait until everybody's out of the eggs and they start stumbling around and acting active. And if you wait too long, they could get dehydrated from not having something to drink, especially with quail being so small. So instead of waiting till they're completely dry, I wait into that stumbling stage and I take a warm towel and I nest them into the towel and I hold it against me and I bring them to the brooder so that they don't catch a chill from the air, and I put them right into the nice warm brooder. We also make sure that we have the brooder set up and ready before they're done hatching. So we add our Premier 1 heat lamp to our brooder and begin warming it up. We also use this right here, which is a thermometer that shows me my temperature. I can take a quick look and see what the temperature is at all times, and it's not going to hurt them unless I wrap them up in it. Get out of the way, cutie. So I usually just use the tip and place that in and take all this excess and pull that up the side. And it works just right to make sure that the temperature settings stay correct and not too high and not too low. And it is good that you set up your brooder in advance so that you can get your adjustment to the temperature to between 95 and 99. Baby quail need access to water at all times. You should always have fresh water available to them right from the minute they hatch. Do not introduce your food until you have introduced your water. What we make here at Wholesome Roots is a magic water, and it's garlic, apple cider vinegar, and honey mixed into a quart jar. So they don't drink a whole quart at a time. So what I've done is pour it off a little bit at a time into their little water dish. Their water dish is literally a jelly lid with pebbles inside. So this makes sure that they can't drown. Little baby quail will easily go in water dishes. What I normally use for chicks is this type of watering dish. This is too big for them still. They can't even get a drink out of this because it's so high. They do sell a smaller version of this red plastic that's smaller. It's like tiny and short, and I will be picking that up my next trip to Tractor Supply store. I just haven't been there in a while, and these babies hatched really fast. Also, I find it very important to use warm water. Now this, because it was in the refrigerator, is cold. That's because it was my extra. The first water I gave them was very warm. And what I do to warm up the water is I warm up the rocks, and then I add the water to the rocks. And once they're a little bit bigger, then I would be able to use this. I would still want to put rocks in here because quail are very susceptible to drowning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a paper towel here just to have extra absorption if they spill their water. And I'm going to place their water dish just at the edge of their heat light. I don't want them sleeping in their water dish, but I don't want it to be so far away from the heat light that they don't go to it. And in the beginning, when you first start out, you have to teach them. I have to go up here and tap my finger in the water dish and let them know that this is what they're supposed to be drinking. And they really do listen when you do that and tap with your finger. And I had to do it several times a day. But when I first put them in here from the brooder, I would take each one as I placed them in here and dip their beak gently without getting their nose holes, their nasal holes wet. I would dip the tip of their beak into the water and leave them next to the water dish so they knew what it was. And you see they still go in the water dish even when it's tiny. It's important to keep an eye on that water dish. Make sure it is never empty. Make sure it is always full. And if it gets bedding or food in it, you need to change it out with fresh water and keep it very clean for them. They need fresh, clean water at all times, or they could get pasty butt. Okay, next and final step is feed. It is very important that you use a small starter feed that is designed for game birds. If you get chick starter, it will not have the sufficient vitamins and nutrients in it. If you cannot find game bird starter that's small crumbles like this, then you're going to want to get game bird feed and grind it up yourself. Even this tiny crumble starter, I have to use a mortar and pestle and grind it up. I could use, if I had a little spice grinder or coffee grinder, I could use that too, but I just find it easier just to pour a little in, grind it up, and pour it into their dish several times a day. I'm constantly keeping an eye on their food intake and making sure that they have food available to them. When you first introduce feed to them, you want to sprinkle a little bit of it onto the floor. They will not notice the dish right away. That's something that you're going to have to teach them, just like you did with the water bowl. But it's good for them to eat off of the floor as well. Something I personally like to add in addition to their feed is something that I do for my ducks, and it really helps make sure that their vitamins are at the proper level. You can either add a brewer's yeast tablet ground up into the mortar and pestle as well, or some Bragg's nutritional yeast. It is just dry yeast with niacin and vitamin B and folic acid, a bunch of vitamin B's. And it's really, really good for them. It's really healthy. It helps their bodies develop correctly. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that about once a day. Just a sprinkle. It doesn't, they don't need a lot. It's just an additional supplement for their bodies. So after I grind up their food, I just put some in each dish so that they do learn about dishes, but I also sprinkle it where they can just eat it. And I want them to start using their dishes more as time goes on and they get bigger. So I'm introducing the idea of using a dish. And you see those, this is just a fast food lid of some sort, like from a restaurant when the kids got a cup. And this is just a little ramekin used for soy sauce when we have our sushi. So they're so tiny, you have to use very small things. Jelly jar lids work great for this as well. I like this one because it kind of holds the food in, but it's so shallow that they just can comfortably step right in it. And again, you do the same thing as you did with the water. You tap, tap, tap on the food the first day or two. And do it several times a day. And that, my friends, is pretty much it. From this point on, I will keep their brooder clean. I will clean it out frequently. I will watch the temperature. The temperature will need to drop 5 degrees per week as they get older. And besides that, we just keep their bedding clean and dry. Keep them in lots of magic water. And keep giving them that healthy ground up feed until their beaks start to get bigger and they're able to start eating some of the bigger pieces. Thank you guys for watching. We hope that you like this video, and if you do, share it with your friends. Give it a thumbs up, like the video, share, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time on Wholesome Roots.